6 new Otome game announcements in 1 week and even more releases up ahead, we definitely need to talk. If I'm not mistaken, we have 9 games planned to release within the next year, so we have almost like 1 game a month to play, or every other month. So I will list them in the order they might probably be released. We don't know the release day for the newest announced titles, but that's no reason not to be excited for them. The new Otome era started probably with Busterfellas on the 30th of July and continues on the 9th of September with Olympia Soiree. I will not go into too much detail with this game because it's going to be released in a month now and probably I'll be able to make a review about this, but a short recap. It is based in a fantasy world where there is a really strict color hierarchy. The most important color is white, and the people of the white color can make the sun rise. And the main character is of the color white, and for some reason she's the only one left and therefore needs to preserve the white color and needs to marry. But because she's the only white person left, she was raised secluded from the world. Now she begins her journey of discovering the world and of course love. So it's a bit like a coming of age story with a rather long common path that is as long as each character route is. The game is half character and plot driven because there's a deep story and lore to unravel behind this color island. It's rated D, so it also has a strong focus on romance and steamy romance. For every one of you who thinks about learning Japanese, don't do it with this game. I would only recommend it if you're an upper intermediate learner. Fall 2021 with Cupid Parasite, a funny rom-com in the style of the American 60s. You play as Cupid actually, but she works in the human world as a matchmaker, so we have some fantasy elements, but on the other hand a lot of funny scenes and steamy scenes and a long and intense love story. The love interests are Shelby, who is more a stoic and calm person and more severe. Then we have Yuki. He is very fashionable and owns an own fashion brand, but is also impudent. Then Gil. He's the broken heart parasite. He's more friendly and, for example, likes to do household chores. Then Paul. He's a big movie star and very bright and honest and liked by many women. Lastly, we have Alan. He owns a pillow store and doesn't really understand the meaning of marriage, so he's a more devilish kind of person probably. As I already mentioned in the video about which games you should choose to learn Japanese with, I also mentioned Cupid Parasite because it has a slice of life setting, so it will be fairly easy to understand at an upper beginner level. I myself am really excited for this game. I already have it waiting for me in the bookshelf. Upcoming on the 2nd December 2021 will be Dairoku Ayakashimori. It's a game about a girl who has the ability to see kind of demons, and that's why she begins to work for the government to watch over those so-called Ayakashi in the different districts. The game is more character-based and has not really an overarching story, but is rather based on the cute interactions between the characters in their character routes, so I guess it probably has a short common path. It was criticized for being a bit rushed at the end and for the lack of story and for not making use of its full potential, and parts of the art were directed by a more famous artist called Sumo. So the sprites are admired, but BCGs are often criticized for being bland. The love interests are Shiratsuki. He is a night-haired fox and the innocent type, but he loves fashion and pop culture, so I bet he'll be really quirky to interact with. Then Hira. He's a kundere tengu. He's lazy and sleepy and acts like he doesn't care, but he's actually quite observant. Then Akuro, he's an oni. In spite of his outward appearance, he's actually really caring and relaxed and polite and easy to be with. Shu is a tsundere snake. He's rather dorky but also bossy. And lastly, Semi Tokitsuku. He is not an Ayakashi but a co-worker. He is from a family where all of the children have this power to see the Ayakashi. He's definitely the poster boy and was number 1 on the character polls, so he's maybe even a bit too perfect. I think this game would be fine to learn Japanese with, except for some fantasy elements, but on what I've seen in the promotional material, it isn't too difficult. I personally won't buy it because the whole Ayakashi thing and the only character-based gameplay doesn't really lure me in. In February 2022, we finally get Barricade localized. It's a rom-com with possibly the weirdest guys you can imagine, because the MC is a bit forced by her grandfather to marry, and he chose the 5 weirdest candidates he could find and urges her to live under one roof with them. That's what makes it a bit different to other games, because it's not the MC who pursues the love interest, but this time it's the other way around, and they have to really fight hard to get her to open up and to win her heart over. Another special characteristic about the MC is that she's actually a voiced heroine, what makes it really good for learning Japanese, because you don't have to read everything yourself, but it's read out loud for you. The different character routes are supposed to be very distinct from each other, and so is the art style. You can see by one glance it really stands out. The love interests are Ichiya. He's described as an over-affectionate super darling, so he's rather flirty and attempted marriage fraud. Then Tiger, he's the Oda-sama character with a gambling addiction, and I believe he's voiced by Young's voice actor, so he's gonna be my favorite, I'm sure. Then Shion, he depends on others financially heavily, but might be more caring towards his lover. Nayuta is described as a puppy dog. He has many debts, but is still a very bright and cheerful character. I think Barricade is a really great opportunity to start learning Japanese with, as it's in a slice of life setting. The gameplay I saw in the promotional material was rather easy to understand, and they didn't use too difficult a language. So it's definitely a must-buy for me as soon as I get my hands on an affordable Japanese copy. Announced for summer 2021, it's finally Piofiore 1926. It's a full sequel to Piofiore Fated Memories, so no fandas, but it actually has plot and might be worth its money. It's divided in 3 episodes, one for the specific character endings, one for the final routes, and one specific for Henry. They are supposed to be all independent from each other, but build upon the story further. There are also a bunch of new side characters introduced, but other than that, the game stays true to its original. It's still brutal and gruesome, and you have jump scare death endings and a lot of romance. Like the first title, I wouldn't recommend it to learn Japanese due to all the complicated mafia talk. This is also a game I already own, and I'm waiting impatiently to finally play it, but I don't want to burn through all the Piofiore content and then be really sad because no more Piofiore for me. So I'll wait a bit longer to play it, but I'm really excited for it. Now we come to the games we sadly don't have an official release date. Starting with Birushana Sensa. It's an historical fiction set after the Heiji Rebellion, so it's supposed to be a bit more historically accurate. The twist about this game is that the main character dressed as a man and is trained in fighting. So she's very strong and doesn't need to be protected. Is kind and compassionate. This game is more story-based and definitely on the earnest side because it includes historical facts but also has fictional elements. There are 3 endings, I believe. The love ending, a sad ending, and a bad ending. And endings even with the side characters, what could be really exciting. You can see your progress in a flowchart, what's really convenient. The downside is that it might not have as much love, but the character routes are rather long. The writer of this game is known for yandere characters, so that might be something to look forward to. The love interests are Noritsune. He's a warlord and knows from the beginning that the main character is a woman. He's very courageous and honest. Then Benkei, he's a monk and a strong and friendly and gentle person. Saito is a childhood friend of the main character, so he also knows of her being a woman. Yanimoto is a very lonely character because his family died. That's why he wants to be alone and live secluded. He's unforgiving and reckless and stoic. Lastly, Tomomori. He is head of the military, therefore is very courageous, clever and trustworthy. He can only be played last and is considered the true root. Because it's historical fiction, I don't recommend it to learn Japanese at all. I mean, if you opt for a challenge or an upper intermediate learner, go ahead, but I definitely won't buy it because I'm not really interested in historical fiction and the Japanese will be way too advanced for my level. The other historical fiction type game that was announced is Kimi. It's by the writers of Café Enchanté and artists of Clock Zero. It's placed in the Edo period, but definitely with strong fantasy elements, so it gets a more dark tone. The city is threatened by monsters and the main character has premonitions on where something bad might happen. That's why she is initially exiled and driven away. And then the game is about fighting the monsters with the different love interests. The common route has 3 chapters, and already in the second chapter you decide to which place you want to go. There are 3 different places, and in each place there are 2 love interests. I really like a more flexible prologue, and that also means that the stories and the characters are very different because they have different roles in the city. There's a good, a bad and tragic end, and you can see your progress in the flow chart. Because it's more story based, it's also a game with less romance. The love interests are Tojo. He's really gentle and friendly and reliable and overall manly. Yoichi. He might be a tsundere because he's very moody but also honest and mean sometimes. Then Kuka. He is diligent and calm and earnest, and that's why he might be Budere. Kinji. He dresses as a kabuki actor to gather intel and is very egoistic and Ore-sama-like, but also very strong. After you've completed those 4 characters, Takashi unlocks. He's gentle and cautious and honest. And after him, you can play the true route. That's supposed to be Taro, what I find really, really unexpected because I wouldn't consider him poster type material. But well, he is bright and friendly and easy to talk to. For learning Japanese, I think it would actually be okay. The promotional material I saw is a bit difficult but not too difficult, so for one lower intermediate it's fairly manageable because you don't have too many historical words or fantasy words. I myself am not sure whether I'm going to buy it. I'm really interested, but on the other hand, the love interests don't seem too appealing to me, to be honest. Another game with supposedly some fights in it is Paradigm Paradox. It's set in the future world in 2500 something and the topic is a magical girl school who protect the school from monsters. But those magical girls are also men. So we have a huge gender bender aspect in this game because the love interests also transform into their girl bodies for longer periods of time. Another special feature in this game is that you can choose between the hero side and the villain side, and depending on which you choose, there are 4 different love interests each to get to know. The common route is a bit longer because it's more based on the story, and the story overall is focused on the conflict between good and bad, and that's also reflected in the different endings. There's a justice ending and an evil ending, and also sudden death endings. So this game looks like a light-hearted, fluffy game. Actually, it's more earnest and dark and not as happy as it appears. As I said, it's more story-based, so the romance falls a bit short. Especially, apparently, in the villain story, it seems like friendship but not really like a romance relationship. The love interests are, starting with the hero side, Takato. He's the best student in school, has the highest grade, but is also stubborn and kind of aloof. Saibara is the most popular guy in school. He's always surrounded by girls, but actually he's really casual, not a flirty boy. Araki is a quiet bookworm who prefers to be alone and therefore uses his poisonous tongue to drive the main character away, so he might be more tsundere and zessi. Mamiya is the student council president and therefore admired. He's also very straightforward but doesn't open up easily. On the villain side we have Ibuki. He's very mysterious but also airheaded and calm and composed. Tomitsuka. He is not a student but the porter, but he's very wise and a realist. Hyuga can be described as hardworking and manly, and he looks after other people. Lastly, Yukinami. He's innocent, but yet he's really cruel and reckless. I think it's okay to learn Japanese with this game. In spite of the fantasy elements, you have much school talk, as I saw in the promotion material, that isn't complicated at all. I must say, I'm a bit hesitant to buy this game because this whole gender bender thing. At first I thought it might be funny, but then I read that the love interest spent a lot of time in their girl form, and that's not something I find really attractive. But I think it's really cool that this game comes to the West. I believe there are many people who are interested in this gender bender topic or enjoy half dating girls and half dating men. It certainly will be a very different experience to other typical Otome games. Lastly, Lover Pretend, another rom-com with the artist from Café Enchanté. The story is that the MC looks for her father, and because her mother was writing a movie script, she enrolls in this job as well, but then somehow ends up playing the love interest in this movie. It doesn't really have a strong story in each of the rooms, but it's more focused on the romance, but more on a pure love. I was so fortunate to peek into a Let's Play before it was taken down, and there was definitely some cupboard on action, but I think that's the most steamy it will get. Each route is supposed to have a good pacing. They are all very distinct from each other, so it doesn't really matter which you play first. The love interests are Kazuma. He's the bright and friendly childhood friend and likes her from the beginning. Makino is a bit shy and withdrawn student. Nishijima is a diligent worker who's very gentle and kind. Sena is the flirty boy, but also a diligent worker. Lover Pretend is another game I mentioned in my With Which Games Should You Learn Japanese video. And I think it's a really great opportunity again because it has no complicated overarching plot you need to understand, the slice of life setting, and the characters don't use complicated language or complicated kanji. I myself am very intrigued to buy this game, but maybe not right now because I have so many other games still to play. But I think one day I will buy it and enjoy some fluffy, pure love. To wrap it up, I think we're more than blessed by the Otome gods with all those new releases, either in the next year or already in this year. And I think every new localized game is a new opportunity for your Japanese for two reasons. Because it's probably a good game because it was successful in Japan as well, and secondly because you can always check back on the localized translation. Those new releases definitely give you new inspirations on which games you could learn Japanese with. I'm curious in which games you're interested the most. Please share it in the comments, and which games you think will be great to learn Japanese with. See you then, bye!